Hello, welcome back to the series on the Dark Night of the Soul, where I go through the Dark Night of the Soul publicly with you. And I wanted to, in this video, talk about what the Dark Night of the Soul is to me and what are some things that are happening to me specifically. So let me know in the comments if the same things are happening to you, or share your story of the Dark Night of the Soul or your spiritual awakening with me. So for a Dark Night of the Soul, from my perspective, is where I have this bird's eye view, a really clear view of not only what's happening right now on the planet, but what has happened, what is going to happen. And it's really a lot, number one. So a part of me, and many of you may be feeling this way, there's a small part of me who is clinging to wanting things to be just more simple, wanting things to be the way they were. And that's a small part of me, because the majority of me is so grateful that I have awakened, that I have a higher consciousness, that I can understand my emotions now. I understand the energy of the emotions. I understand what I need to do. I understand my behaviors. I understand healing that I need to do. There's so much I understand. Yet, while we're on that subject of understanding, what happens is you understand that there's so much you don't know, and there's so much you can't control either. And you can see that as many people are awakening on the earth today. This is amazing. So many people are waking up, yet so many people have not woken up and are acting from these lower levels of consciousness. It is not possible to harm another person, to purposely deceive another person or mistreat another person, or even look at another person and say, well, you're just not important. Your dignity isn't important. Your, emotions, your needs aren't important. You cannot do those things from a high state of consciousness. It's just not possible. But we understand, since we have this bird's eye view, since I have this bird's eye view of what's happening in the world, you get a really good look at suffering. This is something I've always been really in deep connection with. Ever since I was a little girl, I was always aware. I never had the language for it. I never had the guidance. I grew up in a time without the internet. I had to go to the library, and I spent much of my time at the library. But so I didn't have any of the language, but I always understood that there was so much unnecessary violence, and that people were acting mad, that just, it didn't make any sense. And I felt the suffering of people, and I didn't understand that. I didn't understand why it affected me so deeply to my core. And without the proper guidance, I did have some guidance for a while in the church, and I was really grateful for that, and I think that I really needed it, and it happened just as it should, just in divine timing. But what also happened was the church abandoned me because I didn't follow the rules. Even at a young age, even I think I was maybe 11 years old when I started speaking out to my pastor, my first pastor at the time, and telling him openly that I didn't agree with some of the things he was saying. And this was never received well. But so what happened for me was that it led me down a long path of suffering myself. And actually, eventually, I even turned to drugs for a short while to try to numb these feelings. This was actually pretty common for empaths, for old souls, for light workers. And I will make a video eventually about that. And luckily for me, during a terrible back injury, a debilitating level 10 back injury, I wound up having a spiritual awakening, and awakening in layers, because that's how it happens. A spiritual awakening happens in layers, and all these things are revealed to you about yourself, about the world, your behaviors, patterns that you've had. So being in the Dark Night of the Soul right now for me is really about it's like the final initiation. Like much of my life I've gone through, and I've suffered, I've seen suffering, I've had the deep compassion for my fellow earthlings. I've always never understood this divide, even of borders. It never made any sense to me. Flags and borders, and my country's better than yours, and these people deserve help but not these people. These people deserve dignity but not these people. That never made any sense to me. Neither did, fighting over a God's name. This never made any sense to me. I always knew there always could be one God. Why? Because there's one people, earthlings, right? So now that I'm here in my dark night of the soul, it is about coming to terms with suffering on a deeper level. So I've always felt suffering. I felt the pain of others. But now it's really transcending it, transcending suffering, to get to a point where I'm in the process now of doing this, where because I'm an eternal being, we all are eternal beings, we can actually transform suffering and the way that we look at suffering. And I'm in the process of that. It's also a time to come to terms with our own death, with the way things are, with letting go of our old identity that we were brainwashed and programmed to believe. That you are your name, your place of employment, your accomplishments, maybe the things that you didn't accomplish as well. That's part of your identity. How much money you have, where you live, all of that stuff. Okay. But when you have a spiritual awakening, you realize that you're much more than that. We all are. We all are powerful, eternal beings, spiritual beings, having a human experience. And so the dark night of the soul is really about having one foot here, still on the earth, afraid to completely let go, gripping on because it's so ungrounding is what it feels like. It's like, there's fear of completely letting go and being, so we have one foot though, out of this world. And Jesus said, be in the world, not of the world. And that is really what a dark night of the soul is about. It is about you starting the process of beginning to let go of that grip on the world that you have. And it's frightening. All of it can be a lot. It can be overwhelming. So I have many practices daily, and I'm constantly checking in with myself. I'm constantly doing my practices. My favorite practice, just staring at the sky. I don't get bored of it. I think the sky is beautiful. I love just appreciating the earth that we live in. And when I stare at the sky and its beauty with the blue and the white clouds, if I'm lucky enough for the sky to be that way, or even luckier, sometimes the sky will be blue with pinks and purples, and it's just beautiful. And I love to do all of these practices, different practices every day, to keep myself grounded, remind myself of who I am, remind myself of how strong I am, how brave I am, how far I've come. Anyone in the dark night of the soul, you have come so far. You're almost there. But I don't want to, deny the fact that it's difficult. This is a difficult process, and it's really a time for us to trust ourselves, to gain that trust. It's so important, and to gain love for ourselves and worthiness. And a lot of it, the dark night of the soul, things that I'm going through, it's breaking those old programs about your worthiness, and about everyone else's too. Because we're all worthy. We're all worthy of love and dignity and basic needs. And, it's really just a shame. And that's the other thing. We go through these bouts of sadness. So sometimes I'll just say, oh, it's frustrating, right? Because you just want everyone to see this simple fact that everyone needs love. And the reason the world is mad is because of lack of love, because of this separation, because of the harm that hurt people do. Hurt people hurt people. And because the people in charge are not aware of this, or if they are aware of it, many of them are aware of it, they're not correcting the problem. And yet we still are looking at these same people. Throughout history, you see all the mistakes that were made, yet we're still looking to these same people to fix everything. And we're still thinking the same way and wanting a different result. That's what Einstein said the definition of insanity is. Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And that's where we are as humanity. We're stuck in this loop, And that's what it felt like for me when I had a spiritual awakening. I felt like I was on this loop. I had so much momentum. I was going so fast. And level 10 pain for 2 months in a row knocked me off of that. And I was finally able, it was amazing. I was finally able to jump off that wheel. So it's a difficult time. I go through, I haven't cried in a while, but like last week, you know, I would just start crying, you know, randomly. You know, you get fearful, you question yourself, you doubt yourself. This is normal. You sometimes you fight. You're like, no, universe, this is too much. You know, there's all these things that happen, but luckily, and I hope this is happening to you, there is still an underlining. That love and safety is still there. And I just know that everything is going to work out. I believe in divine timing. I believe the closer that you connect to yourself, that inner voice, that intuition, and you're listening to the universe and connecting to source, connecting to love for yourself and for others. I believe the more that you do these things, that you're just in alignment. And when you're in alignment, there are no mistakes. There is nothing that shouldn't be happening. When you're in alignment, everything that's happening is supposed to happen. And there's great peace in that. And I believe that truly. So anyways, I just wanted to give you a little insight because I'm doing this series on the dark night of the soul and I'm always talking about it. So I just wanted to get really specific with you and let you know what it is that I'm going through and what I'm calling the dark night of the soul. So please tell me in the comments your interpretation of the dark night of the soul, what you're going through, and any practices that you are doing to keep yourself grounded, connected to source and love and all of that. I love you. I will connect with you soon. If you haven't done so, please subscribe, hit the bell, and I'll connect with you soon. Thank you.